Good morning, children. Class 8, Political Science, Chapter 2nd. Chapter 2nd is Understand Secularism. Imagine yourself a Hindu and Muslim living in a part of the United States of America where Christians fundamentalism is very powerful. Suppose that despite being a US citizen, no one is willing to rent their house to you. Would this make you feel? Would it not make you feel resentful? What if you decided to complain against these discriminations and were told to go back to India? Would this not make you feel angry? Your anger could take two forms. First, you might react by saying that Christians should get the some treatment in place where Hindus and Muslims are in a majority. This is a form of detailisation, or you might take the view that there should be justice for you. You might fight stated that no one should be discriminated against on grounds of their religious practice and beliefs. This statement rests on the conceptions that all forms of dominations related to religion should end. This is the ensure of secularism. In this chapter, we will read more about what this means in the Indian context. History provides us with many examples of discriminations, exclusions, and persecutions on the grounds of religion. You may have read about how Jews were persecuted in Hitler's Germany and how several millions were killed. Now, however, the Jewish state of Israel treated its own Muslim and Christian minority quite badly. In South Arabia, non-Muslims are not allowed to build a temple, church, etc., and nor can they gather in a public place for prayer. In all of the above example, member of one religious community either persecute and discriminate against member of other religious communities. This act of discrimination takes place more easily when one religion is given officially recognitions by the state at the expense of other religions. Clearly, no one would wish to be discriminated against because of their religious nor dominated by another religions. In India, can the state discriminate against a citizen on the ground of their religious? And what is secularism? In the previous chapter, you read about how the Indian constitution retains fundamental rights that protect us against state power as well as against the tyranny of the majority. The Indian constitution allows individuals the freedom to live by their religious beliefs and practices as they interpret these. In keeping with these ideas of religion's freedom of all, India also adopted a strategy of separating the power of religion and the power of state. Secularism refers to this separation of religions from the state. So, secularism means क्या हुआ? Refers to this separation of religion from the state. Here is a picture. The three drawing in these pictures were done by the student of your age. They would ask to draw a religious tolerance. And next is why this is important to separate religions from the state. I discussed about the most important aspect of secularism is its separation of religions from the state power. This is the important for a country to function democratically. Almost all countries of the world will have more than one religious groups living in them. Within this group, religious groups, there will most likely be one group that is in a majority. जो ग्रुप मेजोरिटी में होता है जनरली उनकी पावर्स होती है. इफ दिस मेजोरिटी रिलीजियस ग्रुप हैज़ एक्सेस टू स्टेट पावर व्हेन इट could quite easily use this power and financial resources to discriminate against and persecute persons to other religions. और वो दूसरे जो persons होते हैं उन्हें कहीं ना कहीं किसी न किसी तरीके से वो परेशान करते हैं एक तरीके से. This tyranny of the majority could result in the discriminations, coercions, and at times even the killing of religious minorities. The majorities could quite easily prevent minorities from practicing their religious. One form of domination based on religious is in violence of the rights that a democratic society guarantee to each and every citizen irrespectively to their religions. Therefore, the tyranny of the majority and the violence of the fundamental rights that can result in one person, why it is important to separate the state and religion in democratic society. Another reasons that it is important to separate religion from the state in democratic society is because क्यों सेपरेट करना चाहिए? बिकॉज वी ऑल्सो नीड टू प्रोटेक्ट द फ्रीडम ऑफ इंडिविजुअल. क्योंकि जो भी एक व्यक्ति है उसकी इंडिविजुअल जो है प्रोटेक्शंस होती है इससे. टू एग्जिट फ्रॉम द रिलीजियस एम्ब्रेंस अनदर रिलीजन्स और हैव द फ्रीडम टू इंटरप्रेट रिलीजन टीचिंग डिफरेंटली. कि वो अपने अकॉर्डिंग जो हैं अपने रिलीजियस को अडॉप्ट कर सके, उसको पढ़ सके, उसकी चीज़ों को अडॉप्ट कर सके. टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस पॉइंट्स बेटर लेट अस टेक द प्रैक्टिस ऑफ अनटचेबिलिटीज़. जैसा आपने अनटचेबिलिटीज़ को देखा है. यू माइट फील दैट you dislike this practice within the Hinduism and therefore you want to try and reform it. However, if state power were in the hands of these Hindus who support untouchabilities, then do you think that you would have an easy task to try and change this? अगर ये सारी चीज़ें किसी एक ग्रुप के पास में आ जाए तो ऑब्वियसली वो अपने पावर्स का यूज़ करेंगे. You might face a lot of resistance from the followers members of your community. These members who had control of state power might say that there is only one interpretation of Hinduism and that you do not have the freedom to interpret this differently. और आप अलग तरीके से अपने आप को इंटरप्रेट नहीं कर सकते. नेक्स्ट इज व्हाट इज इंडियन सेकुलरिज्म. इंडियन सेकुलरिज्म क्या बोलता है? The Indian Constitution mandated that the Indian state be secular. Secular माना जाता है. According to the Constitution, only a secular state can release its objectives to ensure the following: that one religious community does not dominate another. कोई भी dominant नहीं होगी. The some members do not dominate other members of the same religious communities. And third is that the state do not enforce any particular reason nor take away the religion's freedom of individual. The Indian state works in various ways to prevent the above domination. First, it uses a strategy of distancing itself from religion. Religion से जो है distance maintain करके रखेंगे हर religion से. The Indian state is not ruled by a religious group and nor डज इट सपोर्ट एनी वन रिलीजन. और किसी भी एक रिलीजन को सपोर्ट नहीं किया जाएगा. इन इंडियन गवर्नमेंट स्पेस लाइक लॉ कोर्ट्स, पुलिस स्टेशन, गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स एंड ऑफिसर्स आर नॉट सपोर्ट टू डिस्प्ले और प्रमोट एनी वन रिलीजन. और कोई भी जो गवर्नमेंट के इंस्टीट्यूशन है वो किसी भी एक रिलीजन को जो है डिस्प्ले नहीं करेंगे या उसको प्रमोट नहीं करेंगे. हियर इट इज़ ए स्टोरी गवर्नमेंट हाई स्कूल. In a government school in Samapur, students want to celebrate a religious festival. Sir, there is a big religious festival next month. We have never celebrated it in school. Can we do this year? बच्चे पूछ रहे हैं कि हम सेलिब्रेट कर सकते हैं. So they said, I am afraid that it is not possible, Rekha. This is a government school. We cannot give importance to one religion. Private school may do that, Government schools do not celebrate any religious festival in the school premises. Most religious festivals are public holiday, so that we can celebrate this at home. I have never thought of it this way. I guess we can always celebrate it outside school. Always we were plan to celebrate it in our locality. और वो आपस में बात कर रहे हैं कि कोई बात नहीं, हम इसको अपनी लोकेलिटी में सेलिब्रेट करेंगे. In the above storyboard, the celebration of the religious festival within the schools would have a violence of the government policy of treating all religious equally. Government schools cannot promote any one religion either in their morning prayer or through religious celebration. This rule does not apply to private school. The second way in which Indian secularism work to prevent the above dominations is through a strategy of non-interference. This means that in order to respect the sentiments of all religions and not interfere with religious practices, the state makes certain exemptions for particular religious community. स्टेट जो है वो पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी के लिए कुछ रिबेट्स वगैरह दे देती है. ठीक है. गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स have students have different religious background. Read the three objects of a circular state and write two sentence on why it is important that government school do not promote any one religion. And another story is here. A group of friends who have recently bought scooters are meeting to go for a ride together. And one is said, "Hi, I hope you have a helmet. You know the law in Delhi requires that you wear one. Why are not you wearing a helmet?" वो उससे पूछ रहा है कि हमने तो हेलमेट ले लिया, आपने हेलमेट क्यों नहीं लगाया, क्योंकि दिल्ली में तो रूल है हेलमेट का. डू यू वांट टू बी फाइन, क्या आप फ़ाइन देना चाहते हैं? डोंट वरी, आई विल नॉट बी फाइंड. और जो सरदार जी हैं, आप देख रहे हैं कि उन्होंने पगड़ी लगा रखी, तो वो कहते हैं कि डोंट वरी, कोई बात नहीं, आई विल बी फाइंड, आई नॉट बी फाइंड, मुझे फ़ाइन नहीं देना होगा. वाई, परमजीत जी, वाई वुडंट यू बी फाइंड, वो पूछ रहे हैं कि आपको फ़ाइन क्यों नहीं देना पड़ेगा. देखो परमजीत जी कह रहे हैं, फॉर सिख वेयरिंग ए पगड़ी इज़ ए वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ आवर रिलीजियस. पगड़ी जो है हमारे जो धर्म है उसकी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है. द गवर्नमेंट कैन नॉट फोर्स मी टू वियर ए हेलमेट, और गवर्नमेंट ने मुझे परमिशन दी है कि मैं पगड़ी अगर लगा रहा हूँ तो मुझे हेलमेट की ज़रूरत नहीं है, मुझे इस तरीके की जो गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से परमिशन है. इन द अबव स्टोरी बोर्ड, Paramjit, the Sikh youth does not have to wear a helmet. This is because the Indian state recognize that wearing a पगड़ी को हम टर्बन भी बोलते हैं, is central to a Sikh's religious practices, and in order not to interfere with this, allow an exception in the law. लॉस के थ्रू जो है उन्होंने एक्सेप्शन दे रखी है कि आप अपनी पगड़ी को लगा सकते हैं. This third way in which Indian secularism work to prevent the dominations listed earlier in through a strategy of interventions you read earlier in this chapter about untouchability. This is a good example where members of the some religion upper caste Hindus dominate others members some low caste were in it. In order to prevent this religious-based exclusions and discriminations of lower castes, the Indian Constitution banned untouchabilities. In this instance, the government is intervening in religions in order to end a social practice that is, it believes discriminations and excludes, and that violates the fundamental rights of lower caste who are citizens of this country. Similarly, to ensure that laws relating to equal inheritance right are respected, the state may have to be intervene in the religion-based personal law of communities. The interventions of the state can also be in the form of support. The Indian Constitution grants the right to religious community to set up their own schools and colleges. It also gives them financial aid on a non preferential basis. In that way, what way in Indian secularism is different from that of other democratic countries? अदर डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्रीज कैसे डिफरेंट है? Some of the above objects are similar to those that have been included in the constitution of secular democratic countries in other part of the world. For example, यहाँ एग्जाम्पल लिया गया है, the first अमेंडमेंट ऑफ यूएस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, यूएस की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में जो है चेंज किया गया, अमेंडमेंट मतलब चेंज किया गया, प्रोहिबिट्स द लेजिस्लेचर फ्रॉम मेकिंग लॉज रेस्पेक्टिंग एन एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ रिलीजियस or that prohibit the free exercise of religion. That is meant by the word establishment. या establishment का मतलब क्या है? Is that the legislature cannot declare any religion as the official religion. कि कोई भी जो स्टेट है वो किसी भी एक रिलीजन्स को ऑफिशियली रिलीजियस नहीं मान सकता. Nor can they give preference to one religion. In the USA, the separation between state and religions means that either the state nor religions can interfere in the affairs of one another. एक दूसरे में कोई interfere नहीं करेंगे. There is one another way in which Indian secularism, different from the dominant, understand the secularism as practices in the United States of America. This is because, unlike the strict सेपरेशन बिटवीन रिलीजन एंड द स्टेट इन अमेरिकन सेकुलरिज्म में दो है जो बिल्कुल सेपरेशंस है. इन इंडियन सेकुलरिज्म द स्टेट कैन इंटरवेंस इन रिलीजन अफेयर. यू हैव रीड about how the Indian constitution intervened in Hindus religious practices in order to abolish untouchability. In Indian secularism, through the state is not strictly separate from the religious, it does maintain a principled distance wise religions. ये एक तरीके से डिस्टेंस मेंटेन करती है, सेपरेशंस नहीं है हमारे यहाँ पर पूरी तरीके से. This means that any interference in religion by the state has to be based on the ideal laid out in the constitution. These ideas serve as the standard through which we can judge whether the state is or is not behaving according to secularism principles. And next is the Indian state is secular and works in various ways to prevent religious dominations. The Indian constitution guarantee fundamental rights that are based on these secular principles. However, this is not to say that there is no violation of these rights in Indian society. Indeed, it is precisely because such violence happen frequently that we need a constitutional mechanism to prevent them from happening. हम ये चाहते हैं कि जितने भी दो धर्म वगैरह हैं वो आपस में समझौते करके एक दूसरे के साथ मिल के रहें और सबकी जो है रेस्पेक्ट प्रॉपरली हो. The knowledge that such rights exist make us sensitive to their violations and enables us to make actions when this violence take place. और अगर किसी भी तरीके की कोई violence क्रिएट करता है तो बाय लॉज उसको पनिशमेंट दिया जाएगा. In February 2004, France passed a law banned students from wearing any suspicious religious or political sign or symbol such as the Islamic handcraft, the Jewish skull cap और लार्ज क्रिश्चियंस क्रॉसेस. बैन लगा दिया गया फ्रांस में 2004 में इन सब चीज़ों के. दिस लॉ हैज़ एनकाउंटर्ड अ लॉट ऑफ रेजिस्टेंस फ्रॉम इमिग्रेंट हु आर मेनली फ्रॉम द फॉर्मल फ्रेंच कॉलोनीज ऑफ अल्जेरिया, तुनिशिया एंड मोरक्को. इन द 1960s में क्या हुआ? फ्रांस हैड faced a shortage of workers क्योंकि वहाँ वर्कर की शॉर्टेज होगी and therefore had provided visas for this immigrant to come and work in the country. और उन्होंने वीज़ाज देना शुरू कर दिया. The daughters of these immigrants often wear handcrafts while attending schools. However, with the passage of this new law, there had been explained from their school for wearing hand scarf.